Hi, welcome to Chat with Sonlight. Like Sonlight's curriculum offerings, we will explore homeschooling through the lens of a literature-based, Christ-centered education. Join us for everything you might be interested in for organizing your homeschool, connecting with others, and details on literature-based learning, and maybe a few sneak peeks. Hi, welcome to Chat with Sonlight. We are here once again with Adelaide, and she is here to talk about TalkBox.Mom. Last time we had her, we talked about Sonlight, using Sonlight and all the experiences her and her kids and her family are having with their reading and the enjoyment and the traveling. But this all sprung from, and I'm sure, our relationship with her being the creator of TalkBox.Mom. And so I would love for her to explain how it all works. So Adelaide, would you like to introduce yourself, and then we can get talking about your product today?
Yes, I am a partner with Sonlight. You can buy our Spanish year one through Sonlight, and so we just really align with Sonlight. So it's just wonderful to be able to work with you. So I am a mom of three boys. We have a lot of fun using different languages in our home, and I created TalkBox.Mom to help families to start talking in another language the exact same day they start. And that is our focus at TalkBox.Mom.
So what does it mean to use another language in your home? Does that mean that you're becoming bilingual, or that you are switching to use a different language?
Yes. So using another language looks like when you wake up in the morning, your kids are greeting you in that language. You're getting your day started in that language, right? Everyone's getting dressed, you're getting food ready, you're eating, all those things, you're using the language. It looks like throughout the day, you're taking care of things, getting chores done. Your kids are telling you that they're done watering the garden. Is there anything else they can do? Yes, take out the trash, right? You're using the language. It also looks like in your community, you're able to connect with other people, especially if you have extended family members, you're able to connect with them. If they don't speak the language, it looks like you being able to tell your kid to go back and flush the toilet without anybody thinking that your kid's gross because you can say it in the other language. They're like, ooh la la, they speak Spanish, right? Instead of like, your kids didn't flush. Um, it also is like wonderful to be able to connect with families who have moved here and they do not speak English, or the mom does not feel confident in the language. And it helps you really to develop those relationships. I was talking to one of our TalkBox.Mom families about 2 weeks ago, and she said that she had chosen her language based on the congregation where she lived. And because she was using TalkBox.Mom, well, one, the moms were like, "What are you doing? We can talk to you. Like, what are you using? This is wild." And they were so excited. Her son was able to become more a part of their community. He's able to be part of their like performances and take part in that using the language. And then because she was stepping out and using the language with these families, they felt more confident using English with her because they saw her efforts. And sometimes people kind of they feel scared, they feel like they'll be judged when they speak English, and that whole barrier was gone, and it's really this beautiful connection that you're creating. And that's really the difference of using a language, whereas a lot of people go this traditional route and they learn about a language, the mechanics of the language, how it functions, and you're not actually having that connection. And that's really what TalkBox.Mom is. It's being able to have that connection.
So is that kind of where families get stuck, is when they don't get that connection, they're not basically immersing themselves into the language?
Yes, you'll see so many parents who, meaning very well, right? But they want to start with letters, numbers, and colors, right?
Nowhere. So
Yes, because the problem is when you learn letters, numbers, and colors, you just know numbers, letters, and colors. But the reason they think, hey, let's start there is because that's what you do in preschool. But it undermines the fact that the parents were using the language in the home for years. And that's something that's very near and dear to TalkBox.Mom, is that we know that moms and dads are the most successful language teachers in the world. We teach babies and toddlers all over the world to talk at a native level. That is something that a high school teacher or a professor could not achieve with a student learning a language. So it's really incredible what we do. And so with TalkBox.Mom, we lean into that. We lean into teaching like a mom, like a parent.
We carry your first year. What is on a year of learning with TalkBox.Mom or one level? Is that really 1 year or is that many years? What's the idea of what does the scope look like?
Yes. Oh, okay. So comparatively, it's a little tricky because you go so much further with TalkBox.Mom. And let me just tell you the reason why that is, so it makes sense, like the whole scope. So we follow the natural language progression. So when you're a baby, first you're talked to, you are sung to. If you're a homeschool family, you're read to. Of course, if you're using Sonlight, right, the baby there is going to be read to. It's going to happen. Then the child starts talking, singing, and if they're allowed screen time, watching videos, then they start telling stories. But after that, that's when they start reading, writing, and grammar. So to build fluency, we start with talking and listening because when you go to sound out a word, right, in Spanish, you know already what the word is. That's fluency. Fluency is the ability to easily and accurately speak the language. Right. So if you have to run grammar drills through your head, if you have to run vocabulary through your head, you automatically don't have fluency. Correct? So with TalkBox.Mom, we start with fluency. So we have many families, many parents who have bachelor's degrees in a language, and they will report passing up their entire 4-year degree, what they can use in 2 to 4 boxes.
Oh, wow.
Right? Because they can use it. One of our families, Erica Hong, she said that TalkBox.Mom puts feet to the language so you can use it. A lot of people will try all these other things, but it's not building fluency. So we start there. And so it's really fun. Even like within the first week, you're using the language, you're talking in it, which is something that high school students might never get to or might have so much anxiety that they don't do. And so even like one of the little girls she had in our program, she had learned with her family to ask for her grapes, and she said quiero, I want, right? Because that's a nice way to ask in your home with Spanish. So she says this, and then her mom had a song playing, it came on the radio, it was a Shakira song, and the little girl goes, Mommy, she wants something. Right? Like she could hear her phrase, she could pull it out, she could use it. So you're immediately pulling from any fluency, what we call fluency layer activities, like listening to videos, music. You're already pulling from there. You're already using the language. So you build very quickly. So when it comes to like how much equivalency for the boxes is equal to a year, it's just important to know like the homeschool mom, right? She's in charge. Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes, right? So it's like we encouraged you, we would like you to do at least 10 practice sessions per challenge. And if you do that, then that would be the equivalency of 120 credit hours, which is 1 year. Of course, you always want to check if it's for high school, right? You want to check with your school district if you need to, your state, colleges you're applying to. Just it differs for where you're at, so just make sure everything's on track. But the beauty of our program is you don't have to start at high school. You can start much younger. It's for all ages. So families who have multiple ages can do this. And so we'll see a lot of families who will go through our boxes doing their practice sessions, and then they will come back to their first box and go even deeper, and they'll just count the time how they see fit. And you have the lifetime access. The licensing is for your family. So you can re-access that and re-go through it. Based on how you as a parent see fit.
All right. So I have a question for you. What if I'm using this program? So like we did not use this program with my kids when they were younger because it did not exist when my kids were younger. I think you and I already discussed you're not that far off, I think, from one of my kids' ages. At least you look like it.
But you look like my sister. So.
Oh, thank you. My husband always was trying to learn Spanish. Like I met him, he was trying to learn Spanish. He did Spanish classes, we did online courses that we found. You name it, we tried it. Best we've gotten, which I already told you, my personal hangups with learning languages was, we would say gracias, de nada, hola, bonjour. I mixed my French with my
It's like bonjour, okay.
I took French in high school.
I love it.
But So that was very little. My kids took Spanish. It didn't stick enough except to say hello and thank you and you're welcome. I mean, but that is something we commonly do in the house, even now when they're back visiting. So that is just like a one little bite of your whole program. It sounds like that we used it on a regular basis in the context it was needed to be used. So how would you, if I had a family of 4 and I have the young ones and the old ones, we could all use the same program, correct?
Yes, you just buy the program once. And what I loved about what you said is it's very important for a language that, well, for a family, it's doable and it focuses on fluency. So the other programs that you said, I mean, there's a lot of well-meaning programs out there. There's apps that are free, but if it doesn't take the language into the family, the language is not kept in use throughout the day. Then it's just not going to stick. And a lot of people I know, I'm just going to call it as I see it, they're in that language app because they're there for the dopamine hit, right? They want their streak, they want their bells and whistles, they just want to feel the thing. But the thing about dopamine hits is we can place that check mark wherever we want. So when I hear my kids using the language, I call that a check mark. I get that dopamine hit. I am good. And so we do want the language to be kept in use. Our program has 9 different boxes and they cover different areas in the home. And so you learn to add the language to those areas in your home. So when my little boy, my 5-year-old, or he's 4, sorry, my 4-year-old, he needed a little help in the bathroom, right?
Correct.
It was really great. I could use my bathroom. Yes, I could use all my bathroom phrases with him, and he was using them as well. And he was telling me as I walked away that, you know, in the language that he was going to wash his hands, and I half trusted that. Um, but I'm also, right, with my 12-year-old, it's also for him, after he's taken a shower, he can come tell me that he took a shower, which is really important because we don't want him to be so smelly. Right?
Oh, and they smell.
Yes, and so there's a lot of location learning, and so it reminds you to use the language in those locations. As also, you can use the language outside of those locations. So for example, in the bathroom, I might tell my 4-year-old to pull up his pants, but I also might see too much underwear of my older kids and tell them to pull up their pants when we're at the grocery store, right?
Right.
Or actually, if like I bend over to grab something, I know they're gonna say it. Mom, pull up your pants. You're embarrassing me. So it's just really interesting. The language that you use in your home is the language that you also use outside your home. So when you have this foundation of learning the language in your home, when you go to learn, say, biology, you're just adding in new words. It's not a new language. So when you learn a second language within your family dynamic, it also sets you up to speak the language outside of your home.
So each level
Mhm.
1 has 9 challenges. Am I getting that right?
So level
3.
1 has 9 challenges, but it has 3 boxes. So
3 boxes.
level 1 is 3 boxes. There's 3 challenges in each box. So quick on the math there, very impressed. What it looks like when you get it from Sonlight, you'll have all 3 boxes together. And you'll have your first challenge, which you would put up in your kitchen. It has phrases on it like, I'm hungry. How often? How often do our kids say that?
All the time. Mine
We're
always
gonna
started at 9:30 saying, I'm hungry. Can we have lunch yet?
So you're gonna speak so much Spanish, I promise you. It has phrases like "I'm really hungry." Then it has "Do you want certain foods?" Yes, I do want those foods. Here is that food. Do you want more? I don't have any more. Do you want a banana or whatever instead? Are you all done? I'm all done. Let's clean up. Put your plate in the sink, on the counter, in the dishwasher. So we have a whole series here from snack time. Yes, some of this can also be applied to mealtime as well. Because it's in a series like this, the recall is going to be strong. And what you do with your family is, like I said, our goal is to do at least 10 practice sessions. So for a practice session, we choose 1 to 5 phrases. So very, very easy. I might just choose 1 phrase, and I'd choose the phrase, I'm really hungry. If you asked a high school student how to say that in Spanish, they always tell me, tengo muy hambre, tengo mucho hambre. But if a native speaker says it, it is tengo mucha hambre. Tengo mucha hambre. So you're learning, again, the grammar naturally. So we'd be like, that's our phrase. We'd have the native speaker audio. We would play that. We'd repeat with the native speaker, and then we would use that phrase in situations. So as you know from our first interview, my mind goes to popcorn to make things fun. So you might put popcorn or something that's appropriate for your child and their age in a bowl, and every time they say tengo mucha hambre, they get to eat a piece of popcorn. They're going to say it so many times. And then you, after that, after practicing, you're going to practice the motions too, but after practicing, it's your family's goal to use that phrase as much as you can. So when you say bedtime, you bet your kids are going to be like, no, tengo mucha hambre. And you'll be like, too bad, kitchen's closed. Go to bed, right? Like, so you're really using it. And then your next practice session, it could be 2 hours later, it could be 2 days later, just depending on your goals, the progress you want to go. And you'll review your last phrase or any other phrases you've worked on in that specific challenge, and then you'll add in your new phrases. So the next time you might add in, I want a grape, please. The interesting thing about Spanish is sometimes people ask us, like, well, how can my child say, can I have a grape or may I have a grape? But the direct translation of that would sound really silly in Spanish, like way too formal. Like families don't say that. People just don't, you just don't say that. It would be silly. So native speakers, they'll either say, I want the grape, please, or give me the grape, please. And it's not rude at all.
Right.
We don't ever want to make like our American English shove that into Spanish and make them say what we say, right? It's a different way of thinking. And so you're not just getting Google translations, you're getting how a mom would actually say these things with her family. So when you talk to other people, you do not sound like you stepped out of an outdated textbook.
Very, very good.
Right? So then you'll do your 10 practice sessions you'll focus on this challenge for 1 week to 1 month, depending on your pacing. And then you'll move on to your next challenge. You won't learn everything, and that's okay. We don't want it to feel like you have to learn everything. You'll review the phrases you've worked on once a week as you do your next challenge. But then when you come back to that challenge again, you'll learn everything so much faster because you've been using your phrases.
Very,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's very fun. The fluency approach of our first box is consistency and exponential progress. So as you go through the phrases, it's just amazing the amount of things that you're able to say. And they're really foundational phrases. So one of the phrases we have on our cute label cards, we have these cute label cards that you put up in your kitchen. It comes in the box and it has things like, put the cups on the table. Do you need a cup? Can you get me a cup, please? You put it next to the item in your kitchen. So maybe like on the inside of your cupboard for that one. So when you see it, it reminds you like, oh yeah, we're using Spanish and I'm not a slave to my kids. I can ask them to put the cups on the table. Right? Like, okay. But my kids, they love the phrase, can you get me whatever, right? They don't have to get up. So they'll say, me traes whatever, like, me traes un vaso, por favor. Can you get me a cup, please? Or me traes una galleta, por favor. Can you bring me a cookie? I can also use this phrase, can you get me when I'm at a hotel in Mexico, right? I can call down and ask for a towel.
Correct.
For an extra blanket. And these are phrases that you get with our phrase book that also comes with the Sonlight package. And so your ability to use extraction to speak is really high. This is something that babies use to learn a language. Babies, they start by saying individual words. So sometimes people are like, oh, I got to learn vocab. But babies don't learn from individual words. They learn from full sentences and they pull from that. And your brain, even as an adult, even as someone who looks like my sister, right? You can use extraction to pull out and say different things. And because you're getting an ear for the grammar, you sound awesome.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how you move through the program. And it's meant to be giggles and fun, and it's meant to be connecting with your kids. For older kids like teenagers, boy, does it feel like a really fun improv class, right? And it feels like a time they can connect. If you have an older child with younger kids, how amazing for your older child to help facilitate with the younger kids. And for any age kid, as a parent who's learning the language with your kids have this opportunity to see what it looks like to learn something new from their mom.
I say this sounds so incredibly easy. I mean, really, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Is there anything, it almost seems like everything can go, but is there anything to avoid while you're
When
using?
you're learning a language?
Yes.
So it's so hard when we leave this traditional path and we actually come back to real tradition. I mean, it's called your mother tongue for a reason, right?
Right, right.
When we return to how mother tongues are taught, there's like this really there's just a pull to pull back to these traditional things where you're like, we've made it so easy. And when it's easy, like it's right. You know what I mean? So we made it so easy that you're like, oh, do I need to be doing more things? And so sometimes like people will be like, I need to do like grammar worksheets, right? When we start learning a language, we actually want to avoid doing that at the beginning because when it comes to grammar, you want to have a lot of examples for the grammar rule just like with English. So when I told my kids, like, oh, we say an orange, they were like, no, you're wrong. We don't say that. And I'm like, what? Well, like, try to give me one apple. They're like, here's an apple. And they're like, oh my gosh, I said that, right? Like, they're like, oh, because they have the ear for it. So it's really like analyzing what's going on. So if you practice, let's say, washing your hands in Spanish, you're telling your kids to wash their hands, lávate las manos. The word manos ends in an O, which would lead someone who learned rules to think that it's masculine, but
Right.
it's not. Same thing with the word agua. It ends with an A, but it's not, it doesn't start with a la, it starts with L. So that leads people to think that that word is masculine, but you know that when the water's cold, if you're washing your hands in it, you know it's agua fria. So the adjective actually takes on the feminine because it would sound really weird in Spanish to say la agua, l'agua, right? So they say
Right.
el agua. So you're learning the grammar very naturally. So where other people would get stuck and fight, like, why is Spanish doing that? Right? You're not like that. You're like, oh yeah, I know that that's happened. I have examples of that. Another place that people will get stuck where we would like to avoid is again like those long vocabulary lists, right? If I
Right.
gave a vocabulary list to my baby would eat the vocabulary list. We don't do that. We speak in full sentences and we use those in the moment. And so when you use full sentences, you're not only learning vocabulary, you're also getting this understanding of the grammar as well, which is way more important than just learning the word la puerta, the door. Like, how helpful is it to say the door if you don't know how to say, keep the door open, don't slam the door, did you lock the door on your brother, right? Like, those are things we would actually want to say. And then we have again, like the app, just kind of like trying to get that dopamine hit. That's something we'd want to avoid. We do have an app with TalkBox.Mom, but it's not to babysit your kids. It's to help you hear how things are said. And this is actually wonderful for native speakers as well because often for children whose parent is a native speaker, the child when they reply back in English, there's a couple reasons this happens, but when you use the native speaker audio, it takes the pressure off the child to perform for the parent and instead do something with their parent.
Okay.
Right? Practicing in situations, practicing with emotions takes the pressure off of the child sounding perfect in their parent's language and puts the emphasis on fun. Yes, so there's a lot of things that we do at TalkBox.Mom that creates this really positive learning environment so that even if you are a native speaker and your child responds back in English, like we're here for you because we give you the roadmap and we give you the tools to make it really positive in such a way that like this is it's kind of sad. We have families who, before they found TalkBox.Mom, they have gone to therapy because of trying to teach their kids their other language. Like, gone to therapy. There's this one woman where her therapist was like, you need to stop what you're doing. Like, this is really destroying your family. But she also has this deep desire, right? Which is a good desire to pass on the language to her family. And so when I met her with her two daughters, and her language that she was trying to do was French. And she was just so frustrated because she grew up speaking 11 languages and why aren't her children doing this and everything. And so we went through all these principles with TalkBox.Mom, which when you sign up with Sonlight, you get our Total Success Handbook. So you learn all these too. And at the end of learning these and doing activities and using TalkBox.Mom in just a short, like it was like a short 30 minutes, right? I asked her daughter something in French and her daughter replied back in French and her mom was like, are you kidding me? Right? Like, but in such a good way. And she felt like she had all of these tools to take out these, toxic behaviors. Not that she's a toxic person, but we all have toxic behaviors.
Right.
Toxic behaviors that had slipped in the language learning process, because we remove those with our process. It's impossible to use TalkBox.Mom and have those happening, because then you're not really using it.
Right.
So, yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm very excited. I wish I had kids still at home to be using get the first level of Spanish. Finally,
Yeah.
maybe me and the kids could learn to speak in Spanish. I could see, as a single mom with grown kids, that would be a great way to keep us all slightly connected by using something like this, even beyond the regular school year. So thank you so very much.
Of course. And but yeah, and our goal is to connect families. That's our goal. That's what we made TalkBox.Mom for, is to connect families and to connect people, because you can actually use the language. I know that if you can use the language, not just learn about the language, but can actually use it, it's going to change your future opportunities for your work, for your children's work, for your education or your children's education. There's going to be opportunities that open up for people that you meet in your community. It's just going to transform your life. And that's what we're looking for at TalkBox.Mom, life-changing results.
Adelaide, thank you so very much for explaining to us how we would use TalkBox.Mom. I am including a link to the Sonlight link on TalkBox.Mom, the Spanish one. And I'll include a link to TalkBox.Mom so you can see what else is offered with them. Is there anything you would like to say or do?
Yes. If you want to try out the program and see if you like it, you can go to TalkBox.Mom/free. You can try it out, see that you see the positive environment, make sure you love it. And if you do, I would love for you to commit. And if it's Spanish, start with Sonlight, get year 1. And like we said, if it's another language, you can also go to TalkBox.Mom.
Thank you for joining us today. Do you have an idea for a podcast topic, or do you want to chat with Sonlight on an upcoming episode? Email us at connections@sonlight.com.